7 years. That's how long Keisha kept the secret. Until the moment her son's torn shirt exposed the crescent moon birthmark in a crowded restaurant, and Lim Sung-ho, Seoul's most feared mafia kingpin, saw his family's mark on a 7-year-old he'd never met. Before she could run again, gunfire exploded through the windows. Young's crew had been watching the boy for hours, and now the Korean mafia boss who didn't know he had a son 60 seconds ago was the only thing standing between Marcus and a bullet. The empire Sung-ho spent 15 years building would have to burn completely, or his hidden child would never survive what came next. Hello, family. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments so I can send special appreciation your way. And before we dive into this incredible journey of redemption and family, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this one. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Now, let's get into the story. The dining room of Lotus Garden buzzed with the kind of quiet wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Crystal clinked against porcelain. Soft jazz drifted through speakers hidden in crown molding. The air smelled like seared wagyu and old money. Keisha Moore's hands didn't shake when she served tables. Not anymore. 3 years as a waitress taught you control. Control when rent was 2 weeks late. Control when your 7-year-old asked why he didn't have a daddy. Control when the most dangerous man from your past walked through the door and sat at table 12. She'd recognize that profile anywhere. Sharp jaw, sharper eyes. The kind of stillness that came from knowing violence intimately. Lim Sung-ho, Seoul's ghost king, the man whose child she'd been hiding for 7 years. Her manager's voice cut through her paralysis. Keisha, table 12 needs service. Now. She couldn't do this. She wouldn't. But Marcus needed new shoes. The babysitter, charged by the hour. And running would draw more attention than serving a man who'd forgotten her face. She straightened her spine and walked toward the table where her past sat waiting. She was 3 steps away when one of his bodyguards looked up, and his eyes narrowed with recognition she couldn't afford. Good evening, Keisha said, voice steady despite everything. Can I start you with... Sung-ho looked up. Their eyes met. For a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face. Recognition? Confusion? Then nothing. Polite indifference. He didn't remember her. 7 years. 3 months of late-night poetry readings and whispered confessions. A child conceived in hotel rooms between his business trips. All of it erased. Water, he said in English, accent slight. And the chef's selection. Of course, she wrote quickly, hand mercifully steady. Anything else? No. She turned to leave, but his bodyguard shifted, blocking her path. Wait. He switched to English. You look familiar. Keisha's pulse spiked. I have one of those faces. The man studied her a moment longer, eyes calculating. Then he stepped aside. She made it 5 steps before her phone buzzed. Marcus's babysitter, and the message made her blood run cold. In the kitchen, Keisha pressed her back against the walk-in refrigerator door and tried to breathe. The text from Jasmine read, Marcus is asking for you. He scraped his knee at the park. He's okay, but wants his mama. Her son. Her beautiful, brave 7-year-old son who had his father's amber eyes and his father's focus and a birthmark on his left shoulder blade that looked like a crescent moon. The same birthmark Sung-ho had. She'd noticed it that first night they spent together, traced it with her fingers. Family mark, he'd said. My father had it. His father before him. When Marcus was born and she saw that same mark on his tiny body, Keisha knew she'd made the right choice running. Keisha. The kitchen. Manager barked, Table 12. She grabbed the tray of appetizers and pushed through the doors. The restaurant's entrance chimed. Keisha glanced up out of habit and felt the world tilt sideways. Here's what Keisha didn't know about timing. Sometimes the universe doesn't give you a choice. Sometimes your past and your present collide in the worst possible moment. In the worst possible way. Jasmine stood in the doorway with Marcus clutching her hand, his shirt torn at the shoulder. The exact shoulder where the birthmark was. I'm so sorry. Jasmine rushed over. He wouldn't stop crying. He kept saying he needed you, and I didn't know what else to... It's okay, Keisha said quickly, setting down the tray. She knelt in front of Marcus, hands gentle on his face. Baby, what happened? I fell. Marcus sniffled. And the big kids were mean, and I just wanted you. I'm here now, she whispered, pulling him close. I'm here. Behind her, a chair scraped against the floor. Keisha's entire body went cold. She didn't need to turn around to know. She could feel his stare like heat against her back. Could sense the exact moment his eyes locked onto the torn fabric. Onto the small patch of brown skin visible through it. Onto the crescent-shaped birthmark. She turned slowly. Sung-ho stood 10 feet away, frozen mid-step. His gaze wasn't on her. It was locked on Marcus. On proof that couldn't be denied. The restaurant noise faded to static. Time stretched thin and brittle. 7 years ago, Lim Sung-ho was a man who controlled everything. 7 seconds ago, he discovered the one thing he'd never controlled. The existence of his own son. Sung-ho's expression shifted through a dozen emotions in the span of a heartbeat, and then the front window exploded. Glass shattered across tables. Screams erupted. A black SUV screeched to a halt outside, doors already opening. Sung-ho moved faster than thought. He grabbed Keisha and Marcus, shoved them behind him as his men drew weapons with brutal efficiency. Down! One of them shouted. Gunfire cracked through the air, deafening and close. Keisha hit the floor, Marcus crushed against her chest. She covered his ears, his head, her body a shield against bullets meant for the man she'd run from. Sung-ho fired twice, precise, lethal. One of the attackers went down, then another. Back exit, Sung-ho barked. His hand locked around Keisha's arm, hauling her up. Move! They ran. Through the kitchen, past screaming staff, out into the alley where rain had turned the asphalt black and slick. Sung-ho's car was already there, engine running, driver ready. Get in! Keisha didn't think. She shoved Marcus into the back seat and dove in after him. Sung-ho slid in beside them. The door slammed. Tires screamed. The car rocketed forward as bullets punched through the rear window. Marcus screamed. Keisha held him tighter, whispering lies about safety while the truth chased them at 80 miles per hour. Who were they? Sung-ho asked, and the answer would explain why Young's crew had been watching Marcus for hours before the restaurant attack. Young's crew, the driver replied in Korean. They've been making moves all week. They targeted the restaurant specifically? No, sir. They were tracking you. Sung-ho's jaw tightened. Then his gaze shifted to Keisha, to Marcus still trembling in her arms. How old is he? Sung-ho asked quietly. Keisha met his eyes. 7 years of running, 7 years of lies and fear and protection, all collapsing in the space between one breath and the next. 7, she whispered. Sung-ho's hand moved slowly, carefully, to the torn fabric of Marcus's shirt. He pulled it aside just enough to see the birthmark clearly. The crescent moon. The family mark that went back generations. Undeniable proof. His name? Sung-ho's voice cracked at the edges. Marcus, Keisha said. Marcus Lim Moore. Something in Sung-ho's chest seemed to cave, inward. He closed his eyes, hand still resting gently near his son's shoulder. You kept him from me. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even an accusation. Just a statement of unbearable fact. Yes, Keisha said, because lying now would be pointless. Why? Because I saw what you were. Her voice stayed steady despite the tears on her face. I saw the guns, the way men looked at you like they'd die if you asked. I saw the violence you carried like a second skin. So you ran. I protected him. Sung-ho opened his eyes, looked at Marcus, really looked at him, memorizing every feature he'd missed. From me, he said softly. From your world. Everyone told Keisha that running from a mafia boss was smart. What they didn't tell her. Sometimes the thing you run from is the only thing that can save you. The car swerved sharply. Headlights appeared behind them, closing fast, and Sung-ho's expression went from grief to something far more dangerous. They're still following, the driver said. Sung-ho pulled out his phone, dialed. His voice shifted into command mode, cold and absolute. Young-hai, I need a safe house. Now. East side, full security. A pause as he listened. I don't care. Make it happen. He ended the call and looked at Keisha. We're going somewhere secure. We're not going anywhere with you, Keisha said. They know about Marcus now. Sung-ho's voice was flat, final. They saw him with me. They'll assume he's leverage. He's not your... He has my blood. My mark. That makes him a target whether you like it or not. Keisha wanted to argue, but Marcus whimpered against her chest, and the sound of gunfire was still ringing in her ears. How long? She asked instead. Until I eliminate the threat. How long? Sung-ho's gaze didn't waver. However long it takes. What Keisha didn't know yet. Eliminating the threat would require Sung-ho to destroy everything he'd built, and the clock had already started counting down. She thought. She knew what love looked like. She was wrong. Love looked like a man reading Korean poetry in a hotel bar at midnight, translating each line like it was scripture. Keisha had been working at a different restaurant then. A hotel bar in downtown Atlanta where businessmen came to forget their marriages. Sung-ho had been alone at the bar, drinking whiskey and reading a book in Korean. He looked out of place in a way that made him fascinating. "What are you reading?" she'd asked during a slow moment. He'd looked up, surprised. "Poetry." "In Korean?" "The best kind." She'd smiled. "I wouldn't know. I only speak English and bad Spanish." "Then I'll have to translate for you sometime." 3 nights later, he came back. Brought her a translated copy of the poems. Read them to her during her break, his accent turning the words into music. She fell in love slowly, then all at once. For 3 months, they existed in a bubble. He'd visit when he was in Atlanta on business. They'd talk for hours. He never lied to her, but he never quite told the truth either. Until the night she followed him. She'd meant to surprise him at his hotel. Instead, she saw men with guns, heard him speak in that cold, commanding voice, watched someone kneel before him, begging. She never found out what happened to that man. She just ran. And when she discovered she was pregnant 2 weeks later, she kept running. Now, 7 years later, that choice had led them here. To a penthouse safe house where Sung-ho would hold his son for the first time. The safe house was a penthouse apartment in a building Sung-ho apparently owned. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, security cameras on every corner, guards stationed at the elevator. Marcus had fallen asleep in the car, exhausted by fear. Keisha carried him to the bedroom, laid him down gently, and pulled the blanket up to his chin. His face, relaxed in sleep, looked so much like his father's. It hurt. When she came back, out, Sung-ho stood by the windows, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. He gestured sharply, his tone leaving no room for argument. He ended the call and turned to face her. "Young's people attacked because they thought hitting me publicly would show weakness," he said. "They didn't know about Marcus, but they do now." "So what happens next?" Keisha asked. "I and Young." The casual way he said it, like announcing dinner plans, sent ice through her veins. "You're talking about killing someone?" "Yes." "In front of our son?" "He won't see it, but he'll know," Keisha said. "Children always know." Here's what she didn't understand about men like Sung-ho. They don't become monsters by choice. They become monsters because the world demands it. And then one day, they meet someone who makes them want to be human again. Sung-ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he told her about the night his father died, and everything made terrible sense. "When I was 8, my father was killed by a rival organization," Sung-ho said quietly. "They made me watch. They wanted me to remember fear." Keisha's throat tightened. "Instead," Sung-ho continued, "I remembered their faces. Every single one. By the time I was 22, they were all dead." "And you think that's a legacy worth passing down?" "I think," Sung-ho said slowly, "that I spent 7 years not knowing I had a son. And now that I do, I will do whatever it takes to keep him alive. Even if that means becoming the monster you ran from." "He doesn't need a monster," Keisha whispered. "He needs a father." "Then teach me how to be one." The vulnerability in his voice, the raw honesty, cracked something inside her. "I don't know if I can." "You've had 7 years," Sung-ho said. "I'm asking for a chance to catch up." Before Keisha could respond, a small voice came from the doorway. "Mommy." Marcus stood there rubbing his eyes, and what happened next would change all 3 of their lives forever. Keisha turned immediately. "Hey baby, you okay?" Marcus nodded. Then his gaze shifted to Sung-ho. He stared for a long moment, head tilted in that curious way children have when they're working something out. "You have my eyes," Marcus said finally. Sung-ho went very still. "Do I?" he asked carefully. Marcus walked closer, unafraid in a way that made Keisha's chest ache. He stopped right in front of Sung-ho and pointed at the birthmark visible beneath the collar of Sung-ho's shirt. You have my moon too. Sung-ho knelt slowly, bringing himself to eye level. Yes, he said. I do. Mommy says my moon is special, that it means I come from brave people. She's right. Marcus considered this seriously. Are you brave? Sometimes. Are you my daddy? The question hung in the air like a held breath. Sung-ho looked at Keisha. She could see the question in his eyes, the plea for permission. She thought about 7 years of bedtime stories where the father was always absent. 7 years of Marcus asking why he didn't have a daddy like other kids. 7 years of her own fear dictating her son's life. She nodded. Sung-ho looked back at Marcus. Yes, he said softly. I'm your daddy. Marcus threw his arms around Sung-ho's neck. And Lim Sung-ho, feared kingpin of Seoul's underworld, a man who'd built an empire on violence and control, held his son for the first time and wept. 90 seconds of embrace, 7 years of absence. 1 moment to rewrite everything he thought he knew about strength. The moment lasted exactly 90 seconds. Then Sung-ho's phone rang with news that would force him to choose between his empire and his son. Sung-ho answered, voice steady despite the tears still wet on his face. Listened. His expression went cold and hard. When? Young-hai's voice was audible even from across the room. Urgent. Clipped. They hit 3 of our locations simultaneously, Sung-ho said, translating for Keisha's benefit. Young's declaring war. Then leave, Keisha said. Go handle it. I'm not leaving you unprotected. We've been unprotected for 7 years. We managed. That was before they knew Marcus existed. Sung-ho stood, Marcus still clinging to him. Before they understood what he means to me. And what does he mean to you? The question came out harsher than Keisha intended. Sung-ho looked down at the child in his arms. Marcus had already fallen back asleep, head tucked against his father's shoulder, completely trusting. Everything, Sung-ho said simply. He carried Marcus back to the bedroom. Keisha followed, watching as he laid their son down with a gentleness that seemed impossible from hands she knew had killed. In the living room, Young-hai had arrived with files and tablets, and a surveillance photo that would prove Young had been hunting Marcus long before the restaurant. Young-hai spread documents across the table. Young's moving faster than anticipated. He's leveraging the Huang family's connections. 3 council members are already swaying. Can we counter? Not without revealing weaknesses. What about Park? Park owes you, but he won't move against Young without guarantee of protection. Then we give him that guarantee. Sir, Young-hai hesitated. There's something else. She pulled up a surveillance photo, grainy, taken from a street camera. It showed Marcus and Jasmine at the park earlier that day, and it showed 2 men in the background watching. Young knew about Marcus before the restaurant, Young-hai said quietly. This was taken 3 hours prior. Keisha felt the blood drain from her face. They were following him? They were watching my son? The restaurant was never about me, Sung-ho finished, voice like steel. It was about leverage. They just moved up the timeline when they saw me with him. Keisha thought she'd successfully hidden Marcus for 7 years. What she didn't know, the moment Sung-ho returned to Atlanta, every move she made had been catalogued, every routine tracked, every weakness mapped. Keisha needed air, and what Sung-ho told her on that balcony would change everything about his empire. Outside, the city sprawled beneath them, lights and life and all the normal people living normal lives where their children weren't targets. I should have stayed gone, Keisha said. I should have left the city the moment I knew you were here. You couldn't have known. I should have been more careful. Keisha. Sung-ho turned her to face him. This isn't your fault. Then whose is it? She pulled away. You built this empire. You made enemies. And now our son is paying for it. Yes, he said simply. You're right. This is my fault. My world. My consequences. So fix it. I intend to. How? Keisha demanded. By killing Young? By starting a war? What happens when Young's people retaliate? What happens when the next rival sees Marcus as an opportunity? Sung-ho looked out at the city he controlled, the empire he'd built from blood and fear and calculated violence. When my father died, he said finally, I promised myself I'd build something stronger than he had. Something that couldn't be taken. I thought power was the answer. Control. Fear. And now? Now I think I was wrong. He turned back to her. Power attracts enemies. Control creates resentment. Fear breeds rebellion. I spent 15 years building an empire that would keep me safe, and all I did was build a target. What are you saying? I'm saying, Sung-ho said carefully, that maybe the only way to protect Marcus is to tear it all down. Keisha stared at him. Your entire organization? Yes. That's insane. You'd have nothing. I'd have him. Sung-ho's gaze was steady. I'd have you both. If you'd let me. Before Keisha could respond, an explosion rocked the building, and the betrayal came from inside. The balcony door shattered inward. Smoke and heat and the sharp scent of accelerant flooded the penthouse. Marcus! Keisha screamed, running for the bedroom. Sung-ho caught her, pulled her back as armed men appeared in the smoke. Stay down, Sung-ho ordered, shoving her behind the kitchen island. He pulled his gun with practiced ease, fired twice. 2 bodies dropped, but more kept coming. Young-hae was already moving, weapon in hand. She and Sung-ho moved like they'd done this 1,000 times, covering angles, communicating in quick Korean phrases. Keisha crawled toward the bedroom. The smoke was thicker there, choking. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Marcus, she called, voice raw. A small hand grabbed hers. She pulled him close, covered his mouth with her shirt, and scrambled back toward the living room. A man stepped out of the smoke. Not one of the attackers. Someone else. He wore a suit despite the chaos. His face was calm, almost pleasant. And he smiled when he saw Marcus. There you are, he said in accented English. Sung-ho appeared between them, gun raised. Kang, he said, voice deadly quiet. Betrayal, type A. Your enemy stabs you in the front. Type B. Your most trusted advisor facilitates your destruction from within. Sung-ho had just discovered he'd been living with Type B for years. You sold me out to Young, Sung-ho said, and Kang's response would reveal why sentiment was considered the ultimate weakness. Sir, Kang replied with mock formality, I apologize for the dramatic entrance. You're behind this. Behind what? Young's war? No, I simply facilitated his ambition. Why? Kang's smile widened. Because you've grown soft, Sung-ho. Sentimental. And sentiment is weakness in our world. You sold me out to Young. I sold you out to reality. Kang gestured to Marcus. That child makes you vulnerable. Everyone knows it now. And vulnerable kings don't survive. Sung-ho's finger tightened on the trigger. Kill me, Kang said. And Young still comes. Kill Young, and someone else rises. This is the world you built. You don't get to walk away from it just because you suddenly discovered fatherhood. Watch me, Sung-ho fired. Kang dropped, blood spreading across expensive fabric. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of flames and distant sirens. Sung-ho lowered his gun, turned to Keisha and Marcus. We need to leave, he said. Now. They didn't go to another penthouse. Sung-ho took them somewhere Young would never think to look. Somewhere that would become the birthplace of everything new. The safe house sat 3 hours outside Seoul, hidden among pine trees and morning fog. It was smaller, older, with wooden beams and stone floors that smelled like earth and time. No guards, no cameras, just silence and space. Marcus fell asleep in the car again. Sung-ho carried him inside, and Keisha watched her son's small hand curl into his father's shirt, holding on even in sleep. There are 3 bedrooms, Sung-ho said quietly. You can take the master. I'll stay in the other. Where's Young-hae? Handling the aftermath. The fire, the bodies, the police. He pulled the blanket over Marcus carefully. She's good at making problems disappear. Is that what we are? Keisha asked. A problem? Sung-ho looked at her then, really looked at her. No, he said. You're the solution I didn't know I needed. Morning would bring eggs and coffee and Marcus teaching his father about rocks, but first Keisha would receive a text that proved Young was far from finished. Morning came soft and gray, fog pressing against the windows like a secret. Keisha woke to the smell of coffee and something cooking. Sung-ho stood over a pan of scrambled eggs with the focused intensity of someone who'd learned to cook from YouTube videos. You cook? She asked. He glanced up, startled. Badly. It smells good. It's eggs. Hard to ruin eggs. He prepared coffee exactly how she liked it. Their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away immediately. Marcus appeared in the doorway, hair sticking up in every direction, elephant tucked under his arm. "Daddy?" Marcus said, testing the word like he wasn't sure it was real. Sung-ho's entire face transformed. "Good morning. Are we safe here?" "Yes." "Are the bad men gone?" Sung-ho hesitated, and Keisha appreciated that he didn't lie. "Some of them, but not all." Marcus considered this seriously. "Will you stop them?" "I will. Promise?" "I promise." They ate breakfast together, and it felt so normal, so domestic, that Keisha had to look away before the tears came. After breakfast, Marcus wanted to explore outside. Sung-ho went with him, and Keisha watched through the window as her son showed his father how to look for interesting rocks. Sung-ho listened with complete attention, letting Marcus teach him. It was the image of something Keisha hadn't let herself imagine. A family. Her phone buzzed. Another text appeared. Unknown number. "You can't hide him forever. Jung." Her blood went cold. She showed Sung-ho the message, and his response would set in motion the complete dismantling of everything he'd built. "Young's people tracked your phone," Sung-ho said. "We need to move. We just got here. And now Young knows the general area." "Stop." Keisha grabbed his hand. "Just stop running." "I'm not running. I'm protecting." "By moving from safe house to safe house forever?" She pulled away. "Marcus can't grow up like this. Neither can I." "Then what do you want me to do?" Sung-ho's voice rose slightly, frustration cracking through his control. "Young won't stop. As long as I have power, Marcus is leverage. As long as Marcus exists, he's a target." "Then do what you said you'd do." Keisha met his eyes. "Tear it down." Sung-ho went very still. "You understand what that means? I'd have no resources, no protection, no... You'd have us." The words hung in the air. "That's not enough," Sung-ho said quietly. "Not against Young." "Then make it enough." Keisha stepped closer. "You said power attracts enemies, so stop being powerful. Be something else. Be someone else." "I don't know how to be anything else." "Then learn." Her voice softened. "For him. For Marcus." Sung-ho looked at their son, still sleeping peacefully, completely trusting that the adults would keep him safe. The moment you realize the empire you built to protect yourself is the very thing threatening what you love, that's when you learn what power actually costs. "If I do this," Sung-ho said slowly, "Young will move immediately. It will be bloody. And Young dies. That's non-negotiable." He made the calls that afternoon while Marcus drew pictures at the kitchen table. Keisha listened to him speak in Korean, tone shifting between command and negotiation. When he finished, he looked exhausted. "It's done," he said. "The organization will fracture over the next 72 hours. Assets liquidated, territory ceded, key people given exit strategies. And Young? I've arranged a meeting, neutral ground. Tomorrow night. He'll try to kill you. Probably. Then don't go." Sung-ho shook his head. "If I don't face him now, he'll hunt us forever. This ends tomorrow. One way or another." Marcus looked up from his drawing. "Daddy's leaving?" "Just for a little while," Sung-ho said, kneeling beside him. "But I'll come back." "You promise?" Sung-ho hesitated, and Keisha's heart broke at his honesty. "I'll do everything I can to keep that promise." Marcus unpinned a small paper crane from his shirt, something he'd folded that morning, and pressed it into Sung-ho's palm. "For luck," Marcus said. "Mommy says cranes are magic." Sung-ho's hand closed around the paper bird like it was made of diamonds. That night, Keisha made a decision that would break all her rules. She was going to the warehouse with him. The meeting was set for midnight at an abandoned warehouse near the port. Sung-ho had chosen the location carefully. Open sightlines, limited entry, points. Keisha sat in the back, laptop open, recording everything through hidden cameras in Sung-ho's jacket. "You should stay in the car," Sung-ho said as they approached. "No. Keisha. I stay in the car and Young can take us both hostage. I come inside, visible, and he has to factor me into his calculations." She met his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Besides, I'm your witness. That matters." Young-hae cut in. "She's right. Witnesses change behavior. Young won't risk exposure if he thinks this is being documented." The warehouse loomed ahead. Young's cars were already there, black SUVs forming a semicircle of intimidation. They stepped out. Jung waited inside, surrounded by at least a dozen armed men. He smiled when he saw Sung-ho. Finally, Jung said in English, the great Lim Sung-ho coming to negotiate. I never thought I'd see the day. I'm not here to negotiate, Sung-ho replied. I'm here to end this. By surrendering? By walking away. Sung-ho's voice was steady. The organization is already fracturing. In 72 hours, there will be nothing left to fight over. Jung's smile faltered. You're lying. Check your sources. Jung pulled out his phone. His expression darkened as he listened. When he hung up, rage twisted his features. You destroyed everything, Jung said. Years of infrastructure, billions in assets, you burned it all. Yes. Why? Sung-ho glanced back at Keisha. Because some things matter more than power. Jung laughed, bitter and sharp. You're a fool. Power is all that matters. Without it, you're nothing. Maybe, Sung-ho said. But my son will be free. Jung's gaze shifted to Keisha, and what he said next would be his last mistake. Your son, Jung said. The Black Waitress's bastard. That's what this is about? Keisha felt Sung-ho tense beside her. Careful, Sung-ho said softly. Or what? You'll kill me? Jung spread his arms. Go ahead. Prove you haven't gone soft. I don't need to prove anything. Then why are you here? Jung stepped closer. Did you think I'd just let you walk away? No, Sung-ho said. I thought you'd try to kill me. That's why I came alone. To give you the chance. Jung studied him, looking for the trap. You want to die? I want my son to live without my shadow hanging over him. Sung-ho's hand moved slowly to his weapon. If that means I die tonight, so be it. But you die with me, Jung. That's the deal. There is no deal. Then we end this the old way. Jung moved first. He drew fast, professional, but Sung-ho was faster. 2 shots, precise and final. Jung dropped before his gun cleared leather. Jung's men raised their weapons. Wait. Jung-hai stepped forward, hands visible. Your boss is dead. Sung-ho's organization is dissolved. There's nothing left to fight for. You can walk away. Find new employment. Or you can die here for a dead man's ambition. Your choice. The men looked at each other. At Jung's body. At the reality that their leverage had just evaporated. One by one, they lowered their weapons. Smart choice, Jung-hai said. Now leave. They did. Sung-ho stood over Jung's body for a long moment, then turned to Keisha and said 2 words that would define the rest of their lives. It's done, he said. Keisha stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. He held her tight, face buried in her hair, and for the first time since she'd known him, he shook. Not from fear. From release. Let's go home, Keisha whispered. Where's home? Wherever Marcus is. 3 months to dismantle an empire, 1 moment to understand what actually mattered. This is how kingdoms fall, not to enemies, but to love. 3 months later, the world looked different. Sung-ho's empire had collapsed exactly as predicted. Former allies scrambled for territory. Violence erupted, then settled into new hierarchies. And Lim Sung-ho, once feared kingpin of Seoul's underworld, became a ghost. He cooperated with international authorities, providing testimony that dismantled trafficking networks across 3 continents, served a reduced sentence in exchange for information that saved lives. But to the criminal world, he was dead. A cautionary tale about sentiment and weakness. Keisha and Marcus moved back to Atlanta, not to their old apartment. That life was gone. Instead, to a small house with a backyard where Marcus could play without guards watching. Sung-ho joined them when his cooperation deal was complete. No fanfare. Just a man showing up at the door with a single suitcase and a paper crane Marcus had given him, still carefully preserved. Is this okay? He asked at the threshold. Me being here? She pulled him inside. It's more than okay. Marcus ran into his father's arms and Sung-ho caught him easily. You came back, Marcus said. You kept your promise. Always, Sung-ho replied. For you, always. They built a life that looked nothing like power, but 6 months in, the past would try one more time to reclaim them. Sung-ho got a job as a translator. Keisha went back to school for investigative journalism. Marcus started 2nd grade. It was quiet, simple, normal. But 6 months in, the nightmares started. Not for Marcus. He'd adapted with the resilience children have. No, the nightmares belonged to Sung Ho. Keisha would wake to find him sitting on the edge of the bed, breathing hard, hands shaking. "What do you see?" she asked one night. "Everything I did," he said. "Everyone I hurt. It's like now that I've stopped, my brain won't let me forget." "Good." He looked at her, surprised. "Not good that you're suffering," Keisha clarified. "Good that you remember, that you feel it. That means you're human. I don't know if that's comfort or condemnation. It's both." She took his hand. "You can't undo the past, but you can choose who you are now." He leaned against her, and she held him the way she'd held Marcus through his own fears. "I'm trying," Sung Ho whispered. "I'm trying so hard to be someone worthy of him, of you. You already are." "How can you say that? After everything?" "Because you chose us," Keisha said. "You had power, control, everything you thought mattered, and you let it all go. For a son you just met, for a woman who ran from you. That takes more courage than building an empire ever did." 1 year after Young's death, Marcus asked the question that would test whether redemption was truly possible. 1 year after Young's death, Marcus asked it. "Daddy, did you used to hurt people?" They were sitting at dinner. Spaghetti night. Everything domestic and safe. But Marcus was 8 now, old enough to wonder, to remember fragments. Sung Ho didn't look away, didn't deflect. "Yes," he said. "I did. Why?" "Because I thought it was the only way to be strong, to be safe." Marcus absorbed this, twirling pasta on his fork. "Were you wrong?" "Yes," Sung Ho said again. "I was very wrong." "But you don't hurt people anymore?" "No, never again." "Promise?" Sung Ho reached across the table and took his son's small hand. "I promise. The only thing I fight for now is you and your mom." Marcus nodded, satisfied, and went back to eating. This is what redemption looks like. Not erasing the past, but choosing differently every single day. Not forgetting what you were, but becoming someone new anyway. 2 years later, a journalist would come asking questions, and Sung Ho would make one final choice about truth. 2 years later, the call came. Young Hai's voice on the phone, urgent but controlled. "Someone's asking questions, about you, about Marcus." "Who?" "Journalist. They're digging into old records. The restaurant. The warehouse. Young's death." Sung Ho looked at Keisha across the kitchen. "How much time do we have?" "Maybe a week before they put the pieces together." He ended the call and sat down heavily. Marcus came running in, backpack bouncing, excited about school. He launched into the story, hands gesturing wildly. Sung Ho listened, nodding at the right moments, being present even as his mind raced. When Marcus ran off to do homework, Keisha sat beside Sung Ho. "Maybe it's time," she said. "For what?" "To tell the story ourselves, on our terms." "You want to write about us?" "Not me. Too close. But someone we trust. Someone who will tell it honestly. The violence, the choices, the redemption. All of it. The world will know what I was. The world will know what you chose to become." Keisha took his hand. "And Marcus will have that story. His father's journey from darkness to light." Sung Ho thought about his son, about the life they'd built, about the man he was trying to be every single day. "Okay," he said finally, "let's tell the truth." 3 months later, the article went live, and the world would have to decide if monsters could become men. 3 months later, the article came out. From Empire to Fatherhood. One man's journey from criminal kingpin to PTA dad. It was honest, brutal at times. It detailed Sung Ho's crimes, his violence, the people he'd hurt. But it also showed the choice. The moment a hidden child changed everything, the response was mixed. Some called it redemption. Others said it was whitewashing. But Marcus, now 10 years old, read the article with his father beside him. "This is all true?" Marcus asked. "Yes," Sung Ho said. "You did bad things. Yes. But you stopped. For me. For you. For your mom. For the chance to be someone better." Marcus thought about this for a long time. Then he leaned against his father's shoulder. "I'm glad you stopped," Marcus said. "I like this version of you better." Sung Ho's throat tightened. "Me too, son. Me too." 5 years later, the house was full of noise. Marcus's 15th birthday party spilled from living room to backyard, teenagers everywhere, music playing, laughter echoing. Sung-ho manned the grill, wearing an apron that said "World's Most Improved Dad" that Marcus had given him as a joke. But Sung-ho wore it without irony. In the chaos, Keisha found him for a moment of quiet. "You okay?" she asked. "Better than okay," he said. "Look at him." They watched Marcus with his friends, confident and kind, a young man growing into himself without shadows following. "He turned out good," Keisha said, "despite his father." "Because of his father?" She took Sung-ho's hand. "You chose him every single day for 15 years. That's what matters." Sung-ho pulled her close. "I'd do it again. Burn it all down again. 1,000 times over." Marcus caught sight of them and groaned dramatically. "Come on, you guys. Not in front of my friends." His friends laughed. One of them said, "Dude, your parents are actually cute." Marcus made a face, but Keisha saw the pride underneath. The security of having parents who loved each other, who loved him, who were present and real and human. Later that night, after everyone left, the three of them sat on the back porch like they had so many times before. "Hey, Dad," Marcus said. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever regret it? Giving up everything you had?" Sung-ho looked at his son, at the man he was becoming, at Keisha beside him, at the life they'd built from ashes and choice. "Not for a second," Sung-ho said. "Real strength isn't built in shadows, Marcus. It's built in the light. In moments like this. In choosing love over power, family over empire, hope over fear." Marcus smiled. "That's pretty philosophical for a grill dad." "Grill dads can be deep." They laughed, and the sound carried into the night. Proof that even broken things could heal, that even monsters could choose humanity. That family wasn't about blood or birthmarks or shared features. It was about showing up, every single day, and choosing each other over everything else. Always. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments so I can send special appreciation to you. And if this story of redemption, transformation, and the power of family touched your heart, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this one. Tell me in the comments, what moment hit you the hardest? Was it when Marcus met his father for the first time? Or when Sung-ho chose his son over his empire? I read every comment and I love hearing from you. Until next time, remember, it's never too late to choose who you become. See you in the next story.